Alors, mesdames et messieurs, welcome to Montreal, the heart of rock and roll. Très heureux de recevoir aujourd'hui un de mes groupes préférés, Huey Lewis and the News. Formé en 1979, c'est leur première apparition au Festival international de jazz de Montréal. Et la dernière fois que Huey Lewis est venu à Montréal, c'était en 1986 au Parc Jarry où il y avait près de 25 000 fans qui étaient là pour l'écouter. They have sold more than 20 million albums since, including classics like Picture This, Sports, and Four, of course. Album. There were no CDs in those days. I used to listen to over and over as a young university student. Les chansons de Huey Lewis and the News m'ont tellement inspiré que je peux faire un discours seulement avec les titres et refrains de leurs chansons. Just mention that, all those songs were a great inspiration to me. You see, Huey, since the beginning of my career, I always went step by step, one by one, higher and higher. I guess that's the power of love. Always work with heart and soul. Anyway, I guess it's all right, okay? During the 80s, everyone was either new wave, disco, or rocker. As for me, my musical tastes were a little bit more on the traditional side. C'est pourquoi j'ai toujours aimé cette musique aux accents de rhythm and blues et de soul, aux sonorités des années 50, mais avec une touche bien actuelle et des refrains accrocheurs, avec un petit doo-wop bien senti. For some, this kind of music might sound like a little square, but hey, it's hip to be square. Yes, it's true. I'm so happy to be stuck with you, and I can see that you're happy to be stuck with me. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome author and journalist Marie-Hélène Poitras, and of course, Mr. Huey Lewis.
So, hi, Huey Lewis. Welcome to Montreal. We're happy to have you with us tonight. First of all, we're in the middle of the Jazz Fest, and I heard that you were introduced to jazz music at a young age by your father. Tell us about it.
Well, my dad was a radiologist by profession, but he was a jazz drummer and piano player by passion, and he was an amateur musician, but he played with Ralph Sutton for many years and always had a set of drums in the living room. So he would run a regular jam session sort of every month, and I had Ben Webster in my living room one day, so he was a real fan, but he didn't like singers. He only liked the bands. He didn't want anybody to sing.
Your music is associated for many people to the good sides of the 80s. There are the uninhibited saxophone solos, the catchy melodies, really precise riffs, no cheesy synths. It's direct, it's contagious, and it makes people feel good. I was wondering in what state of mind you composed those songs in the 80s?
First of all, it's an excellent question, and we didn't use a lot of cheesy synths, but there are a few cheesy synths actually. But that was my view was that zig when they zag, and I always liked the old stuff. We started in 78, 79, just pre-television, so it was more. It wasn't about appearance. It wasn't about visual as much as it was a little more audio, to be honest. I mean, for example, I don't have any tattoos, and if I had started in 82, I'd probably be tattooed head to toe, if that's what it took to make it. But in our day, it was an audio thing for the most part, and the writing was different. We tried to write songs that were going to be timeless, not ones that were time appropriate. And so then music television came along, and we looked sort of anachronistic for a while, but those songs seem to have weathered better. There's some of those tunes are actually more appropriate at this age than they were when we wrote them in our 20s, only because we were sort of old-fashioned that way,
You've written many big hits. De Mère Coderre mentioned them all. Many went to #1 on the Billboard single chart. when did you realize that you had the capacity to compose contagious hits, that you had this melodic sense?
Well, another good question. Interesting to remember back in the 80s, you know, when we made our sports album we recorded it in 82 and picture this in 81. Right in there, there was no internet. There was all of radio was programmed. The radio and records ran the world. You know, you had to be on CHR radio, Contemporary Hit Radio, which was top 40. That's speak for top 40 radio. And that was the only avenue to success, was a hit single. There was no jam band scene. There was no other way. Even FM radio was programmed. And MTV, which first started in sort of 80, 81, was playing the videos according to Radio and Records' playlist. So it was an absolute radio world. And, you know, Top 40 Radio, just as an aside, started in Fresno, California, when somebody opined, with the advent of push-button radio. When they had push-button radio, they suddenly realized that somebody realized that the idea was not to play anything that people didn't want to hear, because when they heard something they didn't like, they would switch the channel. So the idea was to narrow your playlist to 40, top 40. That's how top 40 was started. But by 80, it was really top 23. And even in top 23, the first 5 records they would play every hour. You know, you get 8 to 15 plays a day if you were in the top echelon, but if you were number 23, you only got played a couple times. The reason I bring this all up is that when you had a hit in 1982, it was a real hit, and everybody heard it. So we were beneficiaries of that system at that time. Curiously, making a pop record, a hit single, was I think our most difficult challenge. We were always a good band, and I think today we would be a jam band if we were coming up today. But that was the only avenue to success. And so we insisted on producing ourselves because we wanted to make those commercial decisions ourselves. We didn't want, and that was really rare in '82 for a record label to allow you to produce yourself, a young band that had never had a hit. Fortunately, our label was Chrysalis Records in London, and they were falling apart, so they couldn't really control us. And we insisted on producing it ourselves, and we aimed every song right at radio in the sports album. And now when I look back on it 30 some odd years later, I realize that that album is, in fact, a record of its time, and that is a collection of hit singles. And so that's, you know, that, and we didn't know we were going to have 6 hits. We knew we needed 1, because if you didn't have a hit single, it's over. And so we aimed all those songs, and we didn't want to repeat them. So we had one that was a rocker, one that was kind of a ballad, one that's kind of a bluesy thing, Bad is Bad. We had, you know, that was absolutely a commercial exercise on our part in order to be able to make a living.
The music industry had changed a lot since the past decade, and music is increasingly accessible to the listeners, but the artists aren't always retributed the way they should. I wanted to know, how do you feel about those changes in the industry?
Well, you know, I mean, you're quite right. I mean, it's interesting. Recorded music is worth nothing anymore, which is interesting. I mean, I think in a large sense, it's a part of a larger discussion. But I think American popular music, which is, I think, maybe America's best contribution to the world. I mean, what is it that anybody cares about? We don't, you know, it's the New York. I guess it's kind of cultural, but the thespian part of that is really British. So the American popular music, which is really an art form, has been sold as a commodity since day one. I mean, all records are the same price. Books aren't the same prices. Paintings aren't the same price. Even wine is a different price. So I think we've been ill-served early on by the industry. And unfortunately, the net product of that, I mean, when Napster came along, if the heads of the industry had said, fellas, we got a problem, let's buy Napster, provide this service to our customers, and charge them a small fee, we'd all be writing checks, we'd all be downloading from CBS, but we're not, they didn't do that. So that part's done. But the truth is that, so all recorded music amounts to now is a kind of a clip, a promo for the actual live performance. But interesting to note that when you play, like we do a lot of wineries and foo-foo, we used to be a beer and hot dog band, and now we're hanging with the wine and cheese set. But at these wineries that we play, every single act has a different ticket price. So it's exactly what the market demands. You can see Bob Dylan for $150, or you can see the local blues band for $9.99 on Tuesdays. Same venue, but different prices. And recorded music is all the same price.
Let's talk about your voice, because you have a great voice, a texture voice. 2 years ago, Erykah Badu was here in Montreal with us. She said, the way you sing is the way you love. I'd like to know your voice. Do you sing today for the same reason than when you did at first?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to make a joke on Eric, but I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna go there. Sing. I don't have a great voice, but I have a powerful voice. And I work on it, and I'm actually a better singer today than I ever have been. My range isn't quite as good, but I'm smarter about my note choices, I think, and I think I'm still improving, because singing, at least, there's all kinds of singing. I mean, there's foie gras and there's hamburgers, so, and I'm probably somewhere in the middle, but you need the chops in order to express what you want to express, because what we're talking about is communicate. What popular music is communication, and so you need to have the chops to communicate. And in that sense, I'm a better singer than ever. There's kind of a funny story. One thing about my voice is that it's not fabulous. It's like a big truck. It doesn't go around corners very quick. But when you get it fired up, it can go across country forever, And so I pride myself on never canceling shows, because it's very durable, my voice. I've probably in my career only canceled a handful of shows. But there are 2 shows that I didn't cancel because I was such a trooper that I should have. And one of them was right here in Montreal. It was my first show here in Montreal.
In the 80s? Or?
1980, our first show ever. And it was at a club whose name I can't recall. It was middle of the winter. I mean, it was like -10 out, I had a cold. I stayed in bed for 2 days, took steam baths, and literally couldn't talk. And we played the show, and I croaked my way through it, and went back to bed, and regretted it, So, because that was our first footing here in Montreal. The reviewers were there, and it was not good. And
you're also playing the harmonica. You do. You play the harmonica, right?
You do what now?
The harmonica.
Yes, the harmonica.
Yeah,
I do.
Harmonica.
I do play the harmonica.
With the accent. Tell us how you've chose the instrument and how you've learned it.
Okay. When my mother was kind of a bohemian, and my mother and father got divorced when I was 11. And my mom rented one of the rooms in our house to a boarder who was a musician. It was a guy called Billy Roberts. He wrote Hey Joe. He was a folk artist. And he played harmonicas with those little braces, the little harnesses, and as part of his act. And he gave me a bunch of harmonicas. And my mom gave me Bob Dylan's first record. She says, check this out. The Poets love this record. Check it out. And so And at that point, I was going to prep school in New Jersey, and I hitchhiked across, back and forth from prep school, and I played harmonica all the way. So now, and then after my senior year of high school, I was a year young because I skipped 2nd grade. I was brilliant in sandbox. And now I graduated at 16 years old. My dad said, "Look, you're only one thing I'm going to make you do. As far as I'm concerned, you know, your choices are your own. You're a man. You can do whatever you want. One thing, what? Don't go to college yet." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Dad, I thought, nope, take a year off and bum around Europe." I said, but Dad, I'm going to go, "Nope, I'm going to make you do it." So I took the harmonica because it fit the image, and I hitchhiked across the country. I went to Europe. I hitchhiked all the way through North Africa, all the way over Europe for a long time, for a year, the whole year, and played harmonica constantly. Came back to college, went to Cornell University for 5 minutes over a 2-year period, and played harmonica and joined bands and blah, blah.
You've wrote 2 songs for Back to the Future, the movie. It was in 1985, so 30 years ago. At that time, did you ever thought that you would still be playing with the News 30 years later?
No, I mean, 30 years ago, I didn't think about much, to be honest with you. We were just trying to keep our heads above water. But I realize now that is, in fact, the objective. You know, you just do this for any number of reasons. But, it's popular to say you do it to, attract girls or to be rich or whatever, be a rock star. But ultimately, it turns out, because the idea is to be able to play music as you love to play music and have people show up so you can pay the bills. And I had no idea that it was, that it would. I didn't have any idea. I think I kind of thought it would last forever. I really did. I think I thought that. And then I realized, wait a minute, it's not going to last forever unless you gin it up a little bit. You got to work at this. And so then I think I rededicated myself somehow.
And what holds you guys together?
We pay well. No, we're my drummer and I went to 7th and 8th grade together. We go back, way back. We're local guys from Northern California, and we have a common love of soul music. In that we were kids when the '60s, were mostly some of our older brothers and parents in some cases. So we, having been born in Marin County, we listened to a station. Our favorite radio station was KDIA in Oakland, and KDIA, I now know, is the one and only sister station of WDIA in Memphis, which was Stax Records' first go-to station. So in many cases, we heard songs on KDIA that nobody else in the country heard. And so we had these little white kids from Marin County who were into this soul music. So common love of that music, and the fact that we have the same roots, and most importantly probably is that the roles in the band suits everybody. Nobody begrudge it. Everybody's happy to let me be the out front guy, and so it just kind of works that way,
And the name, the News, how did you came up with it?
Well, the Beatles was taken. No, we were actually called Huey Lewis and This is to show you how this is date us. We were called Huey Lewis and American Express, which I thought was a great name, because it's what we sounded like, I think. And it was 1978. Huey Lewis and American Express. Chrysalis Records signed us. We made the record, all this kind of stuff. And literally on the eve of the release of our record, they called and said, "We can't call it. We need a new name." I said, "What do you want? What?" They were afraid we'd be sued by American Express for the name. So that we had to get a new name. And so the News was all we could come up with. Okay. But interestingly, had we hung on, we might have made a deal. I mean, right?
Yeah. In the movie Back to the Future, the return to the future is, I think, is on October 21st, 2015. So this is going to be this year. I saw that people are planning to celebrate the event, and there's happening that will happen. What about you? Because I've checked on the website of the band, and there's nothing on the calendar on October 21st.
Well, there's so much going on. My son just texted me last night. I think was it at the Greek Theater or what? No, Universal Amphitheater, or maybe the Hollywood Bowl or somewhere last night. They showed Back to the Future with the LA Philharmonic, played the score last night. So this is their 30th year now, and they're ginning up like crazy. I mean, everybody's, so I'm sure as we get closer, I mean, we don't need to promote it on our website because they do that for us.
I heard that there are possible rumors that the movie will be a remake and that Robert Zemeckis is against the idea. What about you?
Is against the idea?
Yeah?
Yeah, well, if Zemeckis is against it, it ain't going to happen. You know, that is his baby. What they're trying to do, I think Bob and Bob, the two Bobs, Gale and Zemeckis, is to make Back to the Future the musical. And they had it up and running, and they've hired Alan Silvestri and Glenn Ballard to write a lot of the music, and it seemed like a very exciting project, but they folded their tent a little bit. They were workshopping it, and I think it's back in production somehow, but I think that's what they want to do. I don't know. You know, I'm not a backward thing. We have new songs. I don't know why. I don't know why we have new songs, but we have new songs, so I kind of look ahead a little bit.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
we're
you,
happy to have you.
Montreal. Thank you, Mayor. Wonderful.